Everyone wants to take their business, their skills, to the next level. Small and mid-sized business owners have exceptional insight into how to do this. They endure and thrive because they find ways to overcome the challenges that come their way, and they can teach us valuable lessons to apply to our own companies and lives. Stephen Nooner, founder and owner of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. And Bob Gibbons, builder of Riata Commercial Realty, a real estate advisor and tenant advocate, are two prominent Metroplex businessmen who, along with their weekly guests, will ask their and your probing questions, finding impactful solutions that will help you reach for the next level. Here are your hosts, Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons.
Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. I'm your host, Bob Gibbons.
And I'm your host, Stephen Nooner. And we've got an exciting guest today. We've got Rick Heller, Chairman and CEO of FreshLoc Technologies and Wello. FreshLoc provides cloud temperature monitoring systems for industries like healthcare, education, and food service. And Wello is a unique technology solution that helps control infectious disease. To learn more, please visit freshloc.com, that's LOC.com, and welloinc.com, that's WELLOINC.com.
Welcome, Rick. Glad you're here.
Glad you're here. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
So we always start off with what we call the wisdom of others. And so usually this is going to be from like a founding father of the country or, some big-time entrepreneur, Einstein, Stephen Nooner maybe at times, but we haven't used one of yours, have we? We got to find one of those. But today we're actually we like the quote that your PR person brought us, which we thought was amazing. It's actually your quote, and we don't usually do that, but we kind of thought it was a cool quote. And we thought it required some explanation. So we're just going to jump in. So Rick Heller said, "Get them behaving before you get them believing." Behaving. Do your employees behave?
Well, it was not directed. It happens to be one of my famous quotes because it's on the front of a book.
Okay.
And it's all throughout history. You can see that the beginning of just about every good and bad act can be found in the face of getting people to behave a certain way. But once you behave a certain way, it brings you into the belief of that way. So if you do one first, you get the other one, which is sort of backwards from what you think about. It's like, I believe in the stars in the sky or, gods, and so therefore I worship them. In this way, you get them to worship the sky, and then you start telling them the stars in the skies are gods. Huh. So in advertising it works, in marketing it works, and it sounds a little bit more manipulative than it's meant to be. But there are some other more important quotes that we use for our culture, in particular in the company. And that key quote, if I may, is the key that culture is to the company. There is nothing more paramount to that. And so we go around with planning and we go around with strategies and discussing that. But what we say is that culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah, I've heard that one, and I believe it. I'm a believer in it, so maybe I had to behave first before I believed it.
Still waiting for you to behave.
I'd live it first, right? Yeah, so that sounds, on the outside, that sounds almost like the stick before...
Cart before the horse?
Yeah.
Or the stick, whatever. Yeah, I think it is interesting because, sometimes I think research has proven that if people do something, like if you don't feel like it but you smile anyway, it'll brighten your mood. So I can see how actions can lead to belief, but most people, as you point out, feel like it's the other way around. You got to get people to buy into something before you can get them to act on something.
That's a really good point about the smiling, and they've shown that. This is like clear research in psychology. They survey you with a pencil stuck in your mouth, kind of sideways like a bone, and that causes the smiling muscles to tweak. And they find that the outcome of those surveys on mood are much higher when you have the pencil in your mouth. So you smile first, and your mood picks up.
Wow.
So the behavior can induce belief, not always. Belief drives plenty of our behaviors. But it is a key that mutual respect is the beginning of this. And, you know, we have a lot of people who can come into cultures very quickly, and they have a hierarchical, regimented point of view. Military is a great example of that. And yet military we see consistently sort of going a little bit more parallel and a little bit more thoughtful. And while commands are clear and required in the battlefield, which is where that meme comes from, it is still essential that people have this high degree of mutual respect, and that's where honor and integrity comes in. And I don't mean that as just a hackneyed word, but it is the essential in the organization to a good, efficient organization.
So let's get into your companies a little bit. So you have two companies. Did one drive the other one, or so tell us about how you guys evolved to where you're at.
Well, very much so. One invented, in a sense, the other one, and it stemmed from a problem that was very unusual. But we're a temperature monitoring company, so we're very interested in, obviously, temperature, and of course we do gases and relative humidity and particle counts and things like that. But most of it is temperature, and like most things, you know, where you just say one word, you can really come up with in no time at all hundreds, thousands of things around that make it very important. So temperature in healthcare becomes ultimately important, as we know, from the body, and that we have a very stable system, and it is within a degree or two Fahrenheit, which is a very narrow band, when everything is good. And then the question is, what happens when everything is not good? Does it go up? Does it go down? And why? And what are those mechanisms? But when you come to what we started with, which was FreshLoc, we were only interested in equipment and the quality of product. In the case of food, right underneath quality comes health. So then you get infectious food. You get bacteria count that's grown. They're pathogenic, meaning that they can be sickening or deadly. And so as you look at temperature in that way and the way it's being held, there are all sorts of regulatory and good regulatory codes, and more coming, that talk about what those bands are. So we measure that, and we report on that to managers.
So for FreshLoc, your primary function is measuring temperature for food manufacturers and distributors?
That is, I would like to move that to perishables.
Okay.
So while we do have a lot of manufacturers, and we really appreciate the business early on, we moved heavily into healthcare, where the problems are far greater in a small amount of spaces, and they represent much greater risks to people, in particular the patients.
Because they're already, a lot of times, not healthy, right? Whereas probably someone who's going out to eat theoretically has a higher chance of having a healthy immune system or whatever.
Exactly. And it works just that way, that disease transmission is a function of two things, and primarily it's a function of whether you're sick and you're transmitting it to other people. That's if you're out in public. And then it depends on whether you're susceptible. How'd you sleep last night? I mean, the healthiest people we know get sick, but they don't necessarily get sick at those best times. You know, when they're at the peak of their health, they get sick under stress, dehydration, which is the most common thing that creates susceptibility. And that sickness is just manifest as, misery and fever and all these things. And that really means that the body didn't beat that thing that it started with. And we are constantly, any one of us could be beating the flu right now, or a host of things. And that's what our immune system does, and does well.
So take us back a little bit. So, with FreshLoc, you're monitoring food and perishables specifically. How did the idea for Wello suddenly pop up? And tell us in more detail exactly what Wello does and is.
Okay, so in healthcare, there is temperature is very key, say, to vaccines. So think of it as a food, if you will. And so we become very interested in what the temperature band for the vaccine says. And the reason is that I'm going to make this very quick, but there's this thing called labile, which means that they are no longer effective. So if we all go out and get a vaccine that's been temperature abused, you wouldn't know it. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't bother you. It no longer has any effectivity. So you're walking around thinking that you're vaccinated. And then it also messes up the statistics for CDC and for Texas State to figure out why, in fact, somebody got vaccinated and then got the flu, so they blame it on the fact that it wasn't an effective vaccine. So you can go across the board to blood. Blood is a perishable thing. You can't freeze it. You have to keep it cool to keep pathogens from, it just has a very narrow band. Chemotherapies are understood only in the bands that they are tested in, which is a very narrow band of temperatures. So what happened is we were measuring an operating room, and we're a continuous company. We have tens, 20,000 sensors in operation, bring into the cloud. And before, when we talked about, when you introduced me, we called ourselves cloud measurement. We talk about the cloud in terms of electronic and digital cloud monitoring. And so we had an operating room that had this claim that we were saying it was too dry in there. And they're very interested in operating rooms and about it being too dry for operating room fires and all sorts of things that happen when you're around oxygen and whirling things and sparks flying. And so they complained that it was raining outside in Boston and it was extremely dry in the room, and it happened to have been very cold. So we went and we tested our sensors. We said they're fine, they're calibrated, they're extremely accurate as we specified. And ultimately what it turned out to is we consulted with some meteorologists, we got some building engineers, and by the way, it's like bringing a Frenchman who speaks no other language and a Chinese person who speaks no other language together. And before, as we got the measurements and even the language of the units together, we realized exactly that was the case. So if it's 33 degrees outside and it's raining, it can be drier than the Sahara Desert inside, and not only can it be, it is. And so that became very interesting to us. That became an issue for disease spread, which I won't go deeply into. And before long, it was clear that there was a fever component of spread. And so then fever, we just stumbled on the fact that if you have 100-degree fever, you are probably being healed by your body in a very special way. And it is very surprising when you study it and is very misunderstood. And in that moment, when you have a fever, you also happen to be, and it's ironic, you also happen to be contagious beyond your wildest imagination. So if I had 100-degree fever and the flu, and you had no fever and the flu, which meant that you were at the beginning of the flu or at the end of the flu, I would be 35,000 times more contagious than you. The amount of virus that I exhale would be 35,000. That means 35,000 of you equals one of me at that moment. Now, I'm a normal person, you're a normal person. Right. At that moment, there's a big difference. So I'm a big spreader. So when we figured all this stuff out, we realized that we had an equipment company and a human being temperature monitoring company. So we separated the names and created two companies, and it's really one.
Got it.
So Wello then is a device that measures my body temperature. And where do you find that to be most often used?
Thank you for, I didn't explain the Wello station. So the Wello station it's just a non-contact, self-service, fully automated. You walk up to it and it gives you your core temperature, extrapolated from a very special part of the face that you can't get to normally, and it's just a biometric sensor. Looks like a mirror when you walk up to it. Very simple, and we tell you if you're good to go or not.
And there's no touching it.
No touching, no spreading, and nobody around you for you to sicken or to get sick like an occupational hazard.
Degree of accuracy, I mean?
High accuracy. As high accuracy as you can get using this method, as high. I mean, it's like 0.1 degrees C, but that's just a number.
Wow.
Well, we're going to take a break real quick, and when we come back, we're going to ask Rick about, he's got all these great tools for, temperature control and trying to make society better, but how do you prove up the societal impact in a bigger way?
Stick around.
And now, Confessions of a Recovering Landlord.
This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and I am your recovering landlord. After 20 years as a landlord, I now use that experience only for the benefit of companies that lease or buy office buildings and warehouses. Today's confession: knowledge is power. We all negotiate from a position of power and strength, or at least we want to. In any negotiation, the party with the most knowledge probably has the upper hand, and landlords count on this being the case whenever you're negotiating a lease, because most landlords are professional real estate investors and they hire professional leasing agents and property managers. Landlords are in the market every day negotiating leases, while tenants probably only negotiate 1, maybe 2 leases every few years. So tenants feel outgunned. Don't let landlords have all the power. As a former landlord for 20 years, I understand how landlords think and what motivates them. So let me put that knowledge and experience to work on your side of the negotiation. To learn more, contact me at texastenantrep.com. Again, that's texastenantrep.com.
Have you started making plans to take your business to the next level in 2016? Hi, I'm Stephen Nooner, founder and CEO of Alkali. We have a trademark process called the Empowered Advantage that enables CEOs, business owners, and entrepreneurs to more effectively buy and manage their insurance. Before sitting down to make your plans for the new year, here are just a few things to consider. Would you say that you have an actual insurance strategy, one that you can articulate, or have you just purchased a policy here and there over the years? If you have an insurance strategy, was it discussed under the pressure of a renewal deadline or considered earlier in the year to avoid fire drill decision making? If your answer was no to either of these questions, then you may not have the right partner on your team. Visit alkaliservices.com to contact us and take the next step to a bigger and better future.
Hi, this is Tony Spiro.
And I'm Carson Gibbons.
We're the co-founders of CosmicJS, and if you don't like the content of this program, you can go over to the website, cosmicjs.com, and create your own.
Welcome back, everyone, to The Next Level. We're here with our special guest, Rick Heller, Chairman and CEO of FreshLoc and Wello Inc. To learn more about both, please visit FreshLocLoc.com or Wello Inc. WELLINC.com. Bob, no comments, please.
Come on.
Glad
I
you're
need
back.
to. All right. So, Rick, first question is, you sound like you're a scientist. Are you like a degreed PhD doctor? What got you into this?
No, my start at University of Texas was in the School of Drama. I was a Bachelor of Fine Arts student.
Okay. Obvious path.
And path to riches as well. And somehow it wasn't it was probably by the first year, and I won some money on a math test, which I was not taking at the time, that is, any math courses, and so I followed the money, as they say, back in the 70s. And so I went into electrical engineering and just became very enamored with the whole idea of fusing, things that actually I could understand better than theater.
Gotcha.
So one of the things I was trying to understand, so do you guys specifically, is all of your technology and products, is it a direct sales model? Do you ever partner with other companies that wrap your technology in with theirs?
Well, that's a great question. We would always like to partner, and we have from time to time. It's not part of our business model. Our business model depends heavily on our ability to direct sale. Now, in these days, it just makes more and more sense in the sense that, we all have things, we want to know our customer, and to go through distribution sometimes obscures that. Good distribution, though, can actually enhance it, and it can also enhance the size of your company as well. So we've still stayed with a direct sales model by and large, but we are always looking for the opportunity to leverage ourselves and extend ourselves with competent partners.
So who's your ideal client for FreshLoc?
So FreshLoc, the ideal client, probably 85-90% of our base is healthcare. That includes clinics, it includes hospitals all throughout the Dallas-Fort Worth area, includes very well-known, famous institutions, National Institute of Health throughout their laboratories, which are extensive, the Department of Health and Human Services down in Austin, Texas. Leahy Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts, many venerable institutions.
What about like airports that are trying to screen for people coming off international flights?
That would be ideal for us. That's obviously through TSA and regulatory. I'm going to Washington next week. I spent a lot of time in Washington trying to enhance the possibility that they would see this. And in particular, the scary word is bioterrorism, but by and large, it's just pandemic.
Right.
And, we had a pandemic in 1918. Seems like forever ago, and yeah, it was. But it was influenza, and influenza killed 50 million people, and that's not an exaggerated number because there are higher numbers that people support. 50 million people were more people than all of World War I. You can go back to the Civil War. And that was a flu number today, H1N1. They call it the Spanish flu, swine flu. And so that is a very important thing to us. And we can stop pandemics by screening people in hospitals and schools and in borders.
I mean, to me, it seems like a no-brainer. To me, it's almost scary that your technology something like it isn't already on. I just came back from Thailand and just went right back through. I mean, I had to go through a bunch of immunizations before I went, but there's nothing on the way back. I mean, here you go. Welcome back.
Well, in Europe, I went to Europe. Not only did I not have to have a visa to get there, but I had no screenings of any kind to get there, no shots, and coming back, same deal, nothing at all. But I could see this be an application for international travel, but it could also be for just an employer. I mean, a large employer trying to reduce their, sick days. If you can screen out the people that are sick before they walk in the door,
yeah,
that'd be amazing.
Absolutely. Commercial real estate. I mean, just to be able to get offices function in very intimate ways. I mean, we may not drink from each other's glasses without washing it, but I mean, we are breathing in the same space.
Shaking hands
in cubicles. So our HVAC is refreshing from time to time, but it's still moving it around, and we're sharing each other's stuff.
Yeah, but even the HVAC only brings in about 10% fresh air.
Exactly.
So that means 90% of it is the same old stuff that's already gone through at least once.
Exactly. And the oddest thing is, of all this, in terms of sharing stuff, is the safest place, and you're going to laugh at this, I know, is on an airplane. And if you look at the physics of an airplane, and I'm not talking about boarding and deplaning, I'm talking about while you're flying, you have air coming in over your head, you have it exhausting down at the bottom, and you have a continual refresh rate. And thank goodness we don't smoke anymore on airplanes.
Yeah.
And so you have a continuous refresh rate. You have a vast amount of clean air. Unfortunately, it's dry, so your lungs dehydrate. You get off the plane and you wonder why at the end of an international flight like your Thailand flight, they go around with a little 8 ounces of water. And that's to get you rehydrated. They may not even think about this or know this, but they just do it. And the reason that they do it, because you're about to enter an airport where you're about to mix with international other people, and your probably first place is going to be in the bathroom.
So what's one of the biggest challenges you face in your industry right now?
So our challenge is really recognition of this, and it's coming on faster and faster. And so then we want to be we're a small dog, if you will, and we've been in this probably longer than anybody. Our patents have survived, and some of them even have come off. We've been in this for so long as far as the area of wireless temperature monitoring. But we still want to get that credibility out there. And it's hard to do when you're not, when you don't have a big brand name on. But we feel like we're getting it, and we have this continuous revenue model, which means that we continuously are obligated to service our customers to their satisfaction, which is a very challenging thing. And so we're breaking loose. We're growing at a rapid rate, 25-30%. We just closed our year this year at another 30% rate. We'd love to see doubles and triples, and we plan for that. But that our biggest challenge is really just the credibility, and we're trying to get it. That's why we have PR going and this kind of thing.
So as you grow with a growth rate like that, I mean, is the challenge keeping up with product, or is it people, or is it? I mean, I know cost. I mean, growth can be expensive.
Yeah, growth is expensive. Receivables are a bank account that doesn't give all the time. Hospitals are great payers, not always on time, but some of it may be just confusion. So we have some labor doing that, but mostly it's service, it's a culture. We have a culture now that's very inviting. We have a lot of people that like to work for us. We appreciate that. We can hire all that we want to. We've taken on some infusion of capital, and so we're going to be using that over the next year to really push hard. And we have to be profitable with that with that capital. So that means that the bet is returning at the same time as it's made, which is a very unique business challenge.
Was it a strategic investor or someone that knows your business? Or
a special investor.
A
Yes.
special. Okay. Cool. Cool.
Interesting. So, what's one of the highs that you've achieved recently or in the last year or so in your business?
Well, we one of the most important things to us is hospitals and their clinics. So these are like chains almost. And so they're buying a lot of physician clinics. And so they're very much paying attention to the things that go on in those, just like they were in the hospitals. Mm-hmm. And we just do that extremely well. We can go into a very small facility and we can fill out a very large facility without any effort. So so the numbers of those chains, I don't want to necessarily mention them specifically here, but the number of those chains, famous hospital systems, are getting larger and larger and more of them. So acquiring those, if you want to call them franchises, have been our pride and joy.
And I understand on your website you have a counter that shows how many temperatures you've measured, or
yes.
Tell me what that means, and where does that show?
Every day we're in billions and billions of bytes of data. They come into our website from each and every site, and they're immediately available to the customer securely. So they just log in and they can see their things come into the website. So if you go to freshloc.net, FRESHLOC.net, you can't log in unless you're secured, but you can see the counter. It looks like an old car odometer.
Oh, okay.
I feel a little like I'm on car talk here, so I thought I'd
I'll be quick.
So, and I understand the number exceeded just recently 30 billion.
So we're 30 billion, either hitting it or past it. I haven't looked at it today. But
so does that mean that you've measured the temperature on something 30 billion times?
On every, all the equipment out there, and we do it on a very continuous basis, where the CDC requires only 2 a day. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of measurements a day, fully integrate the information. It's available to you instantly, and the history for now going on about 17 or 18 years of history data. So so we have 30 billion measurements from every last thermometer, from fluid warmers to bone tissue, cryogenic freezers,
over
to
what period
Coke
of time?
machines. And that would be, well, even though it's over about 17 or 18 years, I'd say 50% of it is in the past 3 or 4 years. It's just the way the growth curve
Kind of a
works.
hockey stick if you're looking at a graph.
Yeah. And speaking of hockey stick, that's something that I can be proud of now, because we're always, promoting, we're on the blade, we're going on the stick. We're on the stick.
Okay. Congratulations. So with the being on the stick, where do you have to focus most to stay on track?
So our main focus is clearly on creating a culture internally that looks to answering the question of how the customer is actually perceiving us, how it is doing with the equipment, and what else we can actually do to help. And I don't mean for revenue, although that's always something that we would like.
Sure.
But it's what we can do to enhance their experience and ultimately improve the outcome of their services. And we all know hospitals are about health. They're not about feeling good about your doctor anymore. They're not about being happy with even scheduling, although we appreciate them being on time. We want to have better health, and we want the problem that we came in with and nothing more, and in fact that problem gone away. So to help them is the biggest challenge that we have, and then to measure that, since we're a measurement company, that's our favorite thing to do.
What do you want to measure that you haven't yet measured?
Well, we want to measure how, in particular with Wello, we want to measure how the reduction in disease spread has been reduced. And it is a very difficult thing in viral disease spread, such as pneumonia and influenza, and getting the hospitals to actually share that data is difficult because they have some liability, and you have to respect them for that because it's a hazardous world out there litigiously. And so that's what we're looking for, more of that.
So that kind of goes back to the question I asked before the break of, how do you measure the societal impact of all this? And I imagine the answer to that is it's tough because not everybody releases the data.
Correct. And we'll see it more in macro studies. As we become more popular, we'll see it in the macro view of influenza. It's the top 10 killer. It's a casually spread disease, top 10 killer of Americans. It's the only disease that's on that list that's contagious.
And most overlooked.
Most overlooked.
Well, we really appreciate your time. Thank you, Rick Heller, CEO and of FreshLoc and Wello Inc.
Do I need to do this, Stephen?
Yeah, please do.
All right, freshloc.com, welloinc.com. I think we spelled it enough, but it's WELLOINC.com. If you want to connect with the show, please go to nextlevelshow.com or find us on social media. We're everywhere.
If you heard something that someone else should hear, help spread the word. Nextlevelshow.com.
We'll see you next week.
Have a great week.
You have been listening to The Next Level, Conversations That Propel Business with Stephen Nooner and Bob Gibbons. Join us every Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. for more prolific conversations that will take your business to the next level.